Yes, already. Ladies and gentlemen, can I call this meeting to order, please? And thank you for all attending on this wet and rainy evening. I am committed to say that this is the Leisure Services Committee, which is being held on Tuesday the 11th of November 2025, and that the meetings are recorded live and streamed live this evening. There might be a slight exception, they will be streamed tomorrow and shared on the Council's YouTube channel. So by virtue of attending, of course, you do consent to having your image and audio recorded for that purpose. Of course, if you do not wish to do so, then you do not stay for the meeting. For those in attendance, we are not expecting any fire drills this evening, so if you hear a fire alarm, please head to the nearest exit, which is there, and congregate at the fire assembly point by the Oakwood Centre at the front of Woodford Park. So that is what I have on the other bits. I'll take item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies.
Thank you. Apologies from Councillor Jewell.
Okay, duly noted. Thank you. I'll take item 3 on the agenda, which is minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of September, and to approve those minutes that were held, and were provided at the full council agenda on the 30th of September. Does anyone have any comments? In that case, can I have a show of hands?
Can I just say one thing? I did offer my apologies for the last meeting because I was away on holiday at the time.
Has that not been recorded?
That's the use services. Sorry,
okay.
Minutes.
Do you have a comment then? Are you alright, David?
Yeah.
Alright then. All those in favour, please show by raising their hands. All those against? All those abstaining? Those minutes have been passed. Thank you very much. Right, item 4 is to review the actions and follow-ups arising from the previous meeting of Appendix 4, page 3. Kevin, do you want to quickly just...
Yes, thank you. Just to note really, minute 34 regarding Weedon Parkway equipment is a report later in this agenda. Minute 56, that still remains to be considered as part of the Woodford Park Leisure Centre development project, so that will remain on there until that project moves forward. And minute 63, again, there's a report later in this agenda on that.
Thank you. Any questions from members? No? Okay. I shall move forward then to item 5, which is the Woodford Park Leisure Centre Sports Development Activities Report, page 4 head.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. So, performance at the gym has remained pretty consistent in the short time since our last meeting. As always, I've concluded to graph the chart that the community likes to see. As you can see, membership income at the bottom there has remained consistent now for just over 12, maybe 16 months actually, which is really positive. And the reasons why people have left their memberships over the last couple of months are pretty consistent with what we tend to see whenever I put these reports together. Again, I just want to emphasise that injury medical is not injury medical sustained on site. That's people who are injured or suffering something outside the facility. That's the reason they've got their memberships. Otherwise, everything there is pretty much as I would expect it to be. At this time of year, we have a lot of people who move away to go to university or go travelling. Those two at the bottom there probably could be combined, but I just recall whatever reason they provided to me. Moving on to the leisure management system, which is pretty much what I've spent most of my time on over the last couple of months. So following approval from the council at the end of September, we invited companies to quote for provision of a fully integrated system, and I put together 41 key criteria that I wanted companies to basically tick the box of, I should say. That went okay, and as you can see there, I split them into essential and desirable requirements. The essentials really being things that we couldn't live without, or we'd find it very difficult to live without, some of which would have to significantly adapt to the way we worked if we were to go ahead. Desirable is really almost nice to have things that I think actually we could benefit from, and because obviously there's a cost of the system, actually we're quite interested to have as many nice to haves as we could get. As you can see there, company B, which I haven't listed in terms of the name, but the highest score, 40 out of 41, and the only thing they didn't tick the box of was something actually really minor, which is an integration with our current mailboxes, or Outlook mailboxes, which none of the companies could do. So ultimately it didn't make much of a difference anyway. We're now kind of progressing in talks with that company, going through contract terms, making sure everything works for us and everything is expected to be. I've outlined the costs as best I can. A system of this size and all of the individual bits is quite complex, so I've tried to break it down as simply as possible, albeit on the proposal these things are separated in parts. There are two main parts to that: an upfront cost, which is going to be funded from the VAT reclaiming mark reserve, that's just over £8,000. And I've also tried my best to compare the cost of the new system with the current system, albeit the current system is also lots of individual systems added together, so again the costs there are kind of combined.
Difficult to do like with like, really. Yeah.
This is probably the most accurate I can get it before we've actually got it in place and we can really see what the ongoing costs are going to be. And please bear in mind that a lot of these costs go up as our income goes up. So we charge per transaction, for example. So as we have more transactions, the cost goes up, and therefore our income goes up too. So I've used our best estimates to get that price.
Jim, sorry, Ed, do you mind if I just ask a quick question on the companies? I noticed really company A and D aren't too dissimilar in matching your essential criteria. Did costs come into consideration here? Because you noted the costs of company B, but we don't have any figures for companies A and D.
The costs of company D were really difficult to analyse, and there was a lot of extras in order to hit all of our desired criteria, so that one I ruled out quite quickly. Company A was comparable, but more expensive. So company B actually was slightly cheaper, albeit again their pricing structure was different. For example, the upfront costs were a bit lower, but the ongoing costs were higher. So we've chosen, there were two really that I ruled out quite quickly, and it was really between A and B, and I chose B because the pricing was better for us, it was more consistent, and I think especially over time we'll feel the benefits of that. So it was definitely considered, yes.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you, Charles.
I've also tried to display there what I think the monthly impact will be for budgeting purposes ongoing, which is it's going to cost us about £750 a month, albeit we don't actually know exactly how that's going to impact income. I think there could be a surprise there in terms of how popular it is ongoing, and I do think that actually once we get our kind of heads around how it works and we start to use it to its full capacity, that additional monthly income will rise slowly over time. I'll just finish by saying hopefully we'll have this in place at some point in the summer next year. There might be elements of it that launch earlier, but when it's kind of everything is going, it will be in summer next year. I have to go through a lot of training in order to get this going. And kind of linked to the system really, in the full council meeting on the 30th of September, it was proposed that this committee looked into raising the cost of gym membership. I believe it was mentioned it should be by £1. But what this kind of long paragraph at the bottom here in short says is that I'll propose that price increase in January alongside all of the other charges in relation to leisure facilities. So when you see all the other charges for badminton courts, the tennis courts and things like that, gym membership will be in there for this committee to consider as well. So it will be, rather than do it separately, it will be together in January.
And then it will go to strategy and resources.
Can I just ask, sorry, that's a good answer, but has the finance manager included the estimated income in his budget report? You know, assuming the £1 gym membership is agreed.
Darren?
Yes.
Including that from September, that's right.
Yeah. In my what I will do, obviously in January, is I'm going to propose that we increase the cost of gym memberships by £1 from September, which I know is slightly strange, but what I am going to strongly recommend in January is that whilst all the other charges go up on the April the 1st like normal, but rather than increase membership at the same time as we change everybody's direct debit provider, method of booking, basically everything about their memberships, is that we get the new provision in place and then increase the membership once we've got that provision in place. Not only will we be directly providing an improved service then to our members already, I think it will just prove a lot less disruptive. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with transferring direct debit provider, payment methods, all that kind of, the back of house stuff that no one really sees. And I'm cautious that if we do a price increase at the same time as that, it could cause problems.
Yeah.
So I'm going to propose we do it in September and the budget reflects. That's all from me.
Any other comments from the councillors? No? Thank you very much, Ed. That's an excellent report. Okay, I'll then move on to item 6, which is parks and buildings on Essex.
Thank you, Chair. So starting with Woodford Park Leisure Centre, we have building surveys which are ongoing. The measured survey and the M&E surveys are complete. Initial drainage survey identified a number of issues, and we've had some clearance works carried out with further works scheduled for that. That's for the waste sewer coming out of the building, and a lot of very old pipe work comes out. So there's a small section to be replaced and larger sections to be jetted, essentially, in order to it's a sleep inside, so you don't have to excavate the entire thing. Structural survey arrangements being made for that with another contractor, and we've had some boiler repairs carried out. The heating element needed replacing. Woodford Park, the outdoor pitches, as previously reported, the amenities team carried out significant works there. Over 100 tonnes of soil has gone in on those kids' pitches, so they're going to be out of action and are roped off at this time until the spring. As reported previously, we are looking at what the usage model will be going forwards through a lot of use over the last few years, and there not being a break between football, giving an opportunity for that ground work to be done. They've just got progressively worse, that combined with the weather situations we've had consecutively over the last few years, very dry periods and then very wet. We do need to review that, and Ed's working on that with the meeting.
Are there any opportunities to sort of like switch from using the pitches to using the other pitches?
There
we've
are
extended the evening sessions, and then can you move people around? And stuff
Yeah,
like that?
pitch rotation will be important, and the different sports have different intensity as well, so that will absolutely be part of that model. Various contracted tree works carried out over the last few weeks. Community halls, we've had some boiler repairs carried out under warranty over at Chapel, and finally Remembrance. We've had 2 events, one this morning and one on Sunday just gone, both very well attended, both went very smoothly. There have been some changes in the organisation of personnel managing the community event on Remembrance Sunday, and we will be engaging more with them going forwards on how that event works, because it's grown, which is brilliant. So over the last few years it started to grow with more and more people. We tried out a different layout today, which worked really well. Yeah, 2 really good events.
Good, well, actually, I attended and I have to say it was jolly good, especially the team and then Kate afterwards. Was that all free?
Didn't you pay?
I know, I didn't. I guess if I wore a chain, they nodded me through. I didn't even think about it. This man. Can you cut that out for me? Right. Okay then. I'll take any other questions on item 6. Okay. I'll take item 7, which is the Youth Services Subcommittee report on page 7, and there are some recommendations to follow that. Cathy, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, we've done a lot of work on this, and it's been very successful. I think we've been working very hard, all of us, and Matthew's done a lot of work on it. We've had, it appears, quite good success with the first 8 that went to the on the half term. Looking at the report, there was only, I think, 1 didn't turn up for some reason or other, and the others have all seemed to have made quite a lot of progress within that first week. Obviously, I don't know what happened on Friday, that's the first night of the youth club.
I believe they had nine kids attended,
Yeah.
which is not a bad start.
Pretty good, actually, I think.
And actually, the comment we received from Berkshire Youth was that it was a really, really good session. All those kids really engaged and returning. So.
That's very good.
Very encouraging, isn't it?
That is encouraging, at least we're getting on the
Get some
right
traction there, yeah.
track. We have asked, we've got some money over because we had 1,500 because of course the youth club revision started late.
Yeah.
But we've asked, we've been asking Strategy and Resources to approve an extra £5,030 to provide a provision of a leadership training course in the current financial year. Because we all felt this would be a good thing for the youngsters, because leadership is the most important thing to get youngsters at an early age that have leadership potential, but in the wrong way usually. You know, I think it's important to get them in the right direction, and a lot of them are leaders, but they're leaders in the wrong
It's
direction.
the expectation that, out of that course we'll hopefully have some good candidates for leadership within the youth services
Yes.
commission. That's the aim, isn't it?
That is the aim,
Yeah.
yes, to actually encourage them in the right
Yeah, and I
direction.
think that meets the need for, because there's so little qualified youth services out there, it's very difficult to find the right sort of people who can take those sorts of roles on. So actually it makes sense for us to sort of incentivise it with our own training scheme. Yeah.
I've always found that if you encourage youngsters, they
They do step up, don't they? Yeah.
they are really good. So we have asked for that, and we're also actually asking for some more money. Because we've got this flexibility in the providers that we've actually got now, we wondered if it's possible that we increase the budget to 40,000 in the 26-27 budget
I think
instead of 30,000.
yeah, before we get to that recommendation, I think we all plan to spend £28,000 or £30,000 a year as a nominal carry forward from the previous revision we had some years ago. So it doesn't seem unreasonable to me to suggest that the 40,000 that might be, and for such an excellent start has been made on all of these provisions from these different providers. So
Well, yes, it's always been 30,000 for years.
for years it hasn't
Yes.
changed, has it? No, that's what I'm trying to say as well. Okay, so the recommendation, does anybody have any comments before we go to the recommendation?
I'd just like to recall, Chairman, the immense amount of work done
Yes.
by the Deputy Town Clerk, who
Yes.
provided an excellent report,
Yeah.
which made our lives on that subcommittee easier,
Okay.
and we all were unanimous in the recommendation.
I'm thrilled with the amount of work that's been carried out by everyone on that
Yes.
subcommittee. It's been amazing, actually.
And last week managed to
Get
Move
past and move forward. Yeah, I know, it's really great, actually. Okay, recommendation is that we include a budget of £40,004 in the 26-27 budget. We recommend that to Strategy and Resources for full funding of our youth provision going forward. Can I have a show of hands to approve that, please? All those against? All those abstaining? That is carried. Thank you very much.
Sorry, before that I raised my hand, I think you didn't.
Sorry, no, sorry, Majid, sorry. Please, what would you, sorry, yeah, you would have to hold your hand up a bit higher, sometimes I don't
Just one question.
Yes, of course.
Item 4, paragraph second line, it's written, first it's a description of a national issue, and it's written to the lack of long-term funding commitment for youth services. Is it lack of commitment by Borough Council or?
No, it's a general theme across the country, and the nature of it is such that providers find it difficult to train youth workers over a longer period of time because there isn't that funding commitment from councils. The situation we've got here at this stage is also short term. We're looking at that year to year at the moment. But I think what you've got with the providers that you've got and building the relationships that we're looking to do over the next few years, it's quite possible that there would be opportunity for something longer term going forwards that might help with that. One thing just to add on that, if I may, the local clerks have been discussing with Woking Borough Council about the potential for engaging youth workers in a different way and how that might work and what organisation might be the employer in that case. It's very early stages at the moment, we're just looking at what might be possible with some kind of joint working to engage youth workers in a different way.
Thank you, Kevin. Mike.
I'm just going to say, I'm going to raise this at the Berkshire.
Oh yes, you are, aren't you? Yes.
On Thursday, so I should be raising that.
Okay.
And just generally, lest we forget the recommendation first.
Oh, yes.
We need to pass that as well.
We need to pass that, yeah. So the second recommendation, thank you, Mike. Noting the £1,500 reduction in associated with the provision that Kay was talking about just a minute ago, to consider to continue to provide the £5,030 to fund the provision of the leadership training course. And so have a show of hands to approve that recommendation, please. All those against? All those abstaining? That is also passed, Kevin. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Yes.
Can I just make the committee aware on the youth services thing? I have been invited along to see them on the 28th of November. So I shall be going in an official capacity. It will be too late for the S1 meeting, but if anyone wants an update, they're more than welcome to ask me at the full council meeting first week in December.
And is that going to the youth club on that Friday?
That's going to that youth club to actually see it in operation and meet everyone.
Five line coming on.
Yeah.
That's all right. I wouldn't mind showing support for it if I've got the time that evening. I'll have a check. Is it here or is it across the way over the other?
It's
the legislature, isn't it?
legislature.
Cool. All right then. So I will go on to item 8, which is to review the provisional, consider the report on page 10, which is the provisional budget for 26-27. Darren.
I was just going to jump in and introduce it. There's a couple of things I want to mention just before Darren gets into the nitty-gritty, which is historically this committee has received a budgetary control report at each meeting, which is relatively limited in scope in terms of what it showed you going forwards. What you're looking at here is the kind of information that we want to be showing you going forwards. And this is the first time you would have seen it, certainly at this point in the year, in the context of what next year looks like, and that's kind of the whole point of this. That's it really. I'll hand it over to Darren to take you through it.
Okay, right, so this report, we've got an overarching narrative, which is what we're going to focus on, although there are a lot of detailed appendices, which you're welcome to look at and ask any questions on, but we intend going through the detail. I mean, it's there to make sure that you've got a full, transparent set of data behind the report, but the narrative will pull out all the salient points that are relevant for the budget and the proposed increase from the current base budget to the next financial year. Okay, so the work that's gone into the budget is underpinned by a lot of quite complex work. So for example, we've done a very detailed analysis of the staffing budgets. We've looked at the staff's incremental progression along the pay scales. We've looked at contracts that are in place throughout leisure services, so things like cleaning, maintenance, hygiene, sports equipment, that sort of thing. I've worked with Ed looking at demographic impacts, demand for services and his expertise on pricing, that sort of thing for the income side. And we've also factored in macroeconomic factors such as current inflation rates, and we're looking at increases for next year. Okay, so they're currently based on September RPI. October's RPI is not out for another week or so, towards the end of November. So they're all factored in. We've also had to make some assumptions about some of the increases that we know are going to happen, but we don't know what they are yet. So, for example, the pay award for staff, we've assumed 3.5%. For context, this year was actually 3.2%. So it's not unreasonable to think it'd be around those levels, considering RPI is running above that. Unions have asked for £3,000 or RPI plus 2%, whichever is the greater, but historically it's always settled at a lower rate. We also know that the local government pension scheme is undergoing a triennial review. That's not we're not due to know what the outcome of that is until the end of November at the earliest. But for these purposes, we have budgeted for a 2%, not a 2% increase, an increase of 2 percentage points. So it's currently at 27.2% is what the employer pays. So we've assumed an increase of 29.2, which is about 7.5% increase overall. So those numbers are all factored in here. And I think it was mentioned earlier, this is a provisional budget. It will be determined based on affordability. So when we go to S&R with the wider budget, they'll look at what the impact will be on precept, what the impact will be on general reserves, aligned to the Treasury Management capacity, that sort of thing. So again, just a proposal at this stage. So if I can draw you to table 2 on page 1 of the report, paragraph 2.2, that identifies what the sorry, on the first page on page 2.2, in section 2, sorry. So we can see there that the proposed budget is increasing by £131,000 from the current net position of £416,000 up to £548,000, which is a 31.5% increase, which may seem larger on the face of it, but in order to understand why it's going up by that figure, if you look at paragraph 2.3, you can see there that nearly half of that increase is really unavoidable costs. So that is the cost of the pay award, that is the local government pension increase, although we're only making assumptions at this stage. There will be a change. General price inflation also included in that section, and also the impact of inflation on things like utilities, where water, gas and electric are experiencing increases way above the general RPI. So I think water is something about 26% increase.
Thames Water bills excessively increased this year.
So we have not just applied a blanket inflation, we've gone through individual budget lines and picked appropriate inflation rates where we think they're going to be, or we know they're going to be deviating from the general inflation. So those increases account for, as I said, almost half of the increase, so they're unavoidable. Okay. Then of the remaining increase, you've already touched upon one in the previous report, which is the recommendation to increase the youth services provision up to £40,000 and £40,004. That's built into the budget, so that's in these figures. Okay, and then the last tranche of increases are on the second page of the report, and a series of bullet points.
Top page 11.
Top page 11. So they're largely as a result of regulatory requirements around health and safety, maintenance work, and other priorities that officers feel that the council needs to undertake. So I can quickly run through these just so you've got an idea of what's going on. So at the Leisure Centre, there's an ongoing need to protect the sewage piping with some root cutting. So tree roots, as I understand it, are constantly growing in, so they need to be regularly maintained. I'm told the pipes can't be replaced or diverted or not, at least not at a very, very significant cost.
That's what happens with old buildings, the roots damage them and then it's, unless you dig them back up and replace them, it's possible otherwise, yeah. So more maintenance to jet them, clean them, repair them.
There's been changes around regulations in fire doors, so we need to ensure that they are regularly inspected. Also, shower head cleaning to meet water health and water safety standards. So that's been factored in. Recycling collections at the depot have increased, so we've had to set aside some funding for that. Tree surveys and maintenance, again, that's due to changes in regulatory requirements. Football pitch repairs, I think that's probably quite well known. There's been a significant repair already, but I don't think that's really scratched the surface. So they'll need to be continued to make sure the pitches are usable and and can generate income for the council. New cricket screens are required. Currently, the current set, I believe, are unusable. At the bowling club, there's a need to change to environmentally friendly fertiliser. Unfortunately, things that are better for the environment tend to cost more. Also, the specialist equipment hire to maintain the standard of the bowls green, which I believe is one of the high standards around. The cost of that equipment has been increasing, or the hire of that equipment. So I've been liaising with the amenities manager about that, so that they've been factored in. The popularity of the park means that there's been increased footfall at the park. It means wear and tear is greater and more regular, so that needs to be maintained to maintain the high standards. And then the additional frontage and features around the buildings and facilities of the council, so the Rose Garden, the Orchard Garden, the frontages to Oakwood and Coronation Hall need maintaining, so that we'll set aside funding for that. And lastly, at the allotments, just general increase in pest control requirements, removal of walls, that sort of thing that happens from time to time.
Again, skips that we're going to be providing.
So that's the other half of the increase. So again, it's not, these are things that have been identified as in response to regulation or priorities for the council. Okay. The last section covers the assumptions. I've already touched upon those. I don't think there's anything new in there, but I mean, if you look through there, you'll see that inflationary increases around utilities have been specified in there. Talked about the staff incremental progression, that sort of thing. So that's the basis of that budget.
Before I take any questions, I was just going to say this is the first time we would have seen it in this format, so just be aware of that. So in previous years, obviously, as we recall, we didn't see any of this detail because it was all taken centrally in a budget which we had no view of in relation to leisure services. So this is the first time we start to see transparency of all that impact on providing it. So in one way it's great, but in some respects it does look a bit scary, but it is quite normal to see a lot of this stuff. And of course, you know, some of you can do, you relate to things like the increase in the water costs, for example, we know about that. And there are one or two other things on here which to some of you won't be a complete surprise. So I'm going to stop there and stop talking. Does anyone would like to ask questions? David?
Mine is an observation more than anything. We do have the national budget on the 26th of I think it's 26th.
Yeah, it is 20th of November.
Where indications are for some quite large increases in taxation. Now, we can't speculate on what's going to be in that, but can I ask you please to keep that in mind when the budget is actually announced, because increases in taxation could lead to inflation increasing, could lead to increases in building or maintenance costs. and it could also lead to a reduction in the amount people have available to spend, who are our bread and butter. So, you know, just can I ask you please to keep that very much in
At the end of the day, David,
advices.
this is just a
It's
draft
like-
at the moment, and it will just go to strategy and resources, and obviously they'll be aware of the effect of the budget at that point, as well know it.
But there's some excess and argument is the day before the budget, so we won't know.
That was bad timing, wasn't it?
So we won't know at that time.
Okay.
The first time we will have the opportunity to actually discuss it will be probably in
In
January.
that case, there might be an emergency meeting after that.
But
Yvonne, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to I might be looking in the wrong places, but so I believe there are planned improvements to the theatre and the front of this building. Are they accounted for here, or is that not
Not in
In the
this,
region.
not in the leisure services.
at leisure
budget, no, that'll be
services?
in this.
So a separate,
Yeah.
so it's
Okay,
a separate
right,
budget, yeah.
That's my lack of
No, no, that's
understanding.
good
The finer
question.
points.
That's a good question, yeah.
Could I
Dave,
just say, if you've got any questions around anything like that, everyone ask us. I can send you
Okay.
that information and where that lives
All right.
in the
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. I think first of all we should congratulate Darren for an excellent paper.
Yeah, no, it's tremendous, yeah,
It's
that's
the
what
most
we've ever seen it.
comprehensive financial statement I've certainly seen. I notice we're not asked to approve the budget. I would like to be more positive. I would like to sort of say that we do recommend this to strategy and resources for consideration. And we've looked at it, and I think we should adopt it. And so go forward. I mean, I know on the face of it, you think, oh my goodness, 131,000 increase. Have you any idea what that equates to on a Band D property?
We wouldn't know. at this point.
£5 a year,
Yeah,
roughly.
not in isolation from that, but yeah,
No.
probably something like that. Obviously, that picture will change in the wider context of the full budget picture that goes to strategy and policies. And again, just bearing in mind that we're a cycle earlier than we would normally have been or historically been for S&R seeing it as well. And that's the whole point of this, that we have these discussions now.
And the only other comment I've got on page 11, top of page 11, Darren has identified £33,000 of increases per annum. Are they going to be increases every year? Because I noticed one of them is a one-off cost of new cricket site screen, and presumably you won't be paying £3,000 for next year and the year after. So is that the only item that is a non-recurring?
Yes, that. And then possibly the football pitch repairs, because once they're
Yeah.
maintained to a standard,
Yes.
we don't know when that necessarily will be, they'll drop off. But the rest, if they're all approved, will be in the base budget, so you won't see that increase again. They'll just form part of the base and they'll be uplifted by inflation.
I know what you mean though. I mean, some of these things like sewage maintenance, that could possibly happen every year because of the age and condition of the infrastructure that we've got up there. However, when we do the works in Woodford Park to improve that whole estate, as we're planning to, that will probably disappear at some point. Things like fire door inspections and shower and cleaning, that's almost certainly going to be an annual thing. I would have thought if it, I can't understand why it wasn't done before. You know, these things do crop up.
So I would like to recommend that Strategy and Resources consider this report and adopt it.
I think I'd like to recommend it for their,
Yeah.
you know, for their
Yeah, so can I have a second of
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, yeah. All those in favour? Those against?
Positive signal to the
Those abstaining? Fine, that's fine, that's great, thank you, Mike, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Excellent. So now should we get on to item 9, which is the allotment survey of waste deposits report on page 30. Kevin.
Yes, thank you. So that report on page 30 sets out the feedback from the survey of allotment tenants that was carried out over the summer at the request of this committee. That request was made to gather views on the potential charging of plot deposits and other waste management issues at the site. We took the opportunity to gather some other additional that data, which is just helpful in terms of the running of the site and gaining a picture. So there is some other information there, which is a bit more general. We got 162 responses from the 347 tenants on the site, so we're a little under 50%, but actually
Which is pretty good.
good response.
Yeah, very good
absolutely.
response.
And that's the second time we've gone out to survey tenants, and I think we've got a mechanism there through the email addresses we've got and the relationship with the tenants committee that's an effective way of communicating with tenants, and they feel able and inclined to respond, which is really helpful. Some other useful points just to note out in that data. Overall condition of the site was considered to be 83% as fair or good, which was kind of encouraging. We know there are issues which we're addressing, but actually some of those things get forgotten, and I know I always come away from the site impressed with the work that goes on and the overall condition of the site as a whole. And also that the service provided by the council overall is 75% fair, good or excellent. Obviously we would like that to be higher, but actually I just think it's quite a useful barometer for things, and I can see us getting some real use out of speaking to tenants on a more regular basis about that from a sort of satisfaction point of view. Just going on to waste, around 73% of tenants consider that the council should provide more skips at different times through the year, and that's something that we've been talking for some time with the tenants committee about the way we do that. Historically we've done that one point in the year. We have two large lockable skips that go in on the August bank holiday. Everyone kind of tries to get down there, fights to get in and do what they need to do, and we manage it. It works, but part of that conversation was about if we can do that, stagger it through the year, have more skips. It's not huge amounts of money, and what we're looking to do over this next year, and is included in the 26-27 budget, is to do that 3 times through the year rather than once. We're looking at what can go in some of those skips as well, and the potential for some of those skips to be more specific in terms of waste items. And we're looking at that working in conjunction with a more robust inspection regime, which we've got with the Tenants Committee now, which is working really, really well, and obviously the administration of that our end, and also the potential for a dedicated waste area for specific items. And again, the committee have been really helpful with that, and I've actually spoken to a couple of contractors, for example, metal work and things like that, which can be put in one place, taken away at no cost, and we can trial that and see how that goes as part of the strategy for tackling waste at the site. Excuse me, just moving on to deposits. There were a range of views expressed, which is probably similar to the views expressed at this committee previously. With regard to the charging of deposits for tenants wishing to keep hens and rabbits, there was a range of views with around 42% considering it not necessary, 58% thinking there should be a charge. With regard to deposits for new tenants, in order to reduce the potential cost of waste, again, there was a mix there, nothing definitive, but that's reflected in the recommendations which I'll come to shortly. It is proposed that a refundable deposit, £250, be charged in relation to tenants wishing to keep hens and rabbits on a plot, which would be refundable upon termination of the tenancy, minus any cost that would be incurred by the council in removing structures or animals or waste from that site. Just one thing to note in terms of that, we're anticipating numbers to be relatively low for people wanting that at the moment. We think we've probably got 2 or 3 across that 374 that we're looking to do that. So it's kind of not a make or break situation from a financial point of view. I do think it focuses the mind of those tenants on the importance of the things that they need to do, and there is an increased potential for there to be waste left on the site at the end of the tenancy. That said, the most important element of that will be the agreement that they need to sign in order to do that, and that's another item in the agenda for approval, which will be an agreement which sits alongside the current tenancy agreement and covers off the things essentially the tenants will need to do from a legislation point of view, looking after heavy rabbits on the site, and also what the council's responsibility is in exercising our due diligence as best we can to ensure that those things are adhered to in terms of animal welfare. So yes, the recommendation, obviously there will be some questions.
Yeah. So, questions? Mike?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's very informative. You made reference to use of skips, and just perhaps as wider curiosity, if nothing else, what is actually, or what can be included in those skips at the moment, and by increasing to 3 skips per year, what sort of things could be included?
Yeah, so at the moment they're 12-yard capacity lockable skips. You can't put green waste in there, you can't put tyres or asbestos or anything like that. Tenants Committee manage the skips, so there are specific times when they're open and they monitor what goes in, and hopefully part of the CCTV system kind of looks down on it to discourage anything else going in there. We're still working on what other ones might be helpful to have, and for example the issues we had with green waste, which we talked about previously in relation to bonfires and things like that, there is a potential for us to provide those through the year, so that's still for some discussion about exactly which ones we would use and when would be the best time to do them through the year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of thinking the green waste would be pretty sort of useful one to provide by the very nature of allotments being green, really. So, thank you.
David?
Just out of interest, the questions for you, Kevin, really. I think it was the last full council meeting, we appointed Kester as the town council representative on the allotments. As we are going to be considering deposits and such like in rent reviews, have we had a report from Kester?
No, not to this point. I understand he hasn't been able to attend any of the meetings so far.
Right. Can I suggest that if any major items come up on the allotments for consideration, that a report be tendered by Kester to this committee?
I think that was the idea, wasn't it? That he would do a report in a normal way.
Yes,
So,
I know he's been in touch with them.
But, you know, while we've got someone on the allotments committee, it makes sense that they should have a say in these decisions.
Okay, thanks, David. Any other questions before I ask? I'll come up with my own. Yes, Danny.
These skips, the majority, 35% of them never used these skips. Is it because of the awareness that they are, or is it the communication? Because they need a use, obviously, more skip.
I think it's a mixture of things. Partly the timing works for some people, not for others. So historically, we've gone for the bank holiday weekend in August, which for some people might be great, and for others, always going to be away or doing something else. We've got another piece of work to do to establish when are the best times to put those skips and what the locations are. And so you can be quite far away from one if you're at the far side of the site from there. So we've got another exercise to do in establishing the best way to do that.
I think sometimes with skips, you know, traditionally they've always been done, you know, the same number, the same time of year for years and years. We've never changed it. And now we've got 380 plots and we've got 60. You know, it's, and also, you know, with segregation of waste being, you know, a more viable option now. It's the right time to start thinking about it, which is hopefully what this initial proposal is going to do, with a bit more work to find out when and where and what types of waste we can recycle, like with the metal, for example, it costs us anything, and you know, it's not even pay us for it. So, okay. think what I'd like to draw your attention to is that, you know, the refundable waste deposits for new tenants wasn't implemented, but we did take some deposits, so those will be returned. So I know that was a contentious point some many months ago when we first talked about it. So that will be addressed. I think in terms of the hens and the rabbits and the £250 deposit that we've got here to be implemented. The reason we wanted to do the deposit was really to cover those costs for animal clearance, if that became an issue, because it's not like digging a medical plot. You know, there are lots of other considerations taken into consideration when you're keeping animals. But when you look in the detail, notably, I think it's up to 9 hens, probably not that many more rabbits, or as it was suggested, and with regular inspection, probably not so much of an issue. I think the agreement, the agreement that we've also got does provide that we can charge a deposit at any time. So what I'm suggesting is that, and please feel free to sort of, you know, argue against me, but what I'm thinking with only 2 or 3 people interested in doing this, and the feedback evidence taken from other allotment sites that provide this service, I feel more comfortable not charging a deposit at this point. And then I think we see how it goes over the next few years. And then if we find that there's an explosion of people wanting to do this on plots, we may very well have to, we'll have more information about things like, you know, they're not being kept and the council has to go in and pull the RSPCA to clear dead animals and make areas safe, all that sort of thing. Then I think we may have to reconsider a deposit. But 60% of people did say a £250 deposit or higher was okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, that says to me, at least out of the number of people, at 50% that did reply to the survey, that they're okay about having a deposit for hens and for rabbits. So the eggs can't be sold, they can only be consumed by the people, you know, so there's all those sorts of safeguards in there. You can't run a commercial enterprise, basically. That's one of my concerns. People would have like 3 or 4 plots and have about 50,000 birds on there as a and suddenly we find ourselves with a great big problem on our hands. But the agreement's pretty tight on all those aspects. Michael.
Sorry, you just said something that's reminding me with the bird flu epidemic.
Well, it is on the rise, so DEFRA, yeah.
Should we not have something in the agreement that talks about, in the event of, what's it called, avian flu?
Yeah,
There is some terms in there about
there's also a requirement to register all birds with DEFRA,
Yes.
regardless of number, because of that. And
There's quite big obstacles that they're going to have
Well,
to come
the
in.
cost of keeping hens and rabbits is expensive, inherently expensive, much more than growing vegetables. And so, you know, from my perspective, if you're not serious about it, you wouldn't find a £250 deposit particularly onerous, because actually the other costs, buying the birds, complying with the red legislation, putting in all the accommodation, the daily visits you'll have to make, the more than one, you know, 2 other people as a backup. I mean, there's a whole list of things that they have to comply with before they can even bring an animal onto the site. So it will be a lot more expensive.
My own concern is security of the animals. Rabbits, of course, are very prolific.
Yeah.
In growing their number. So if they've got 9 rabbits,
And suddenly it's 29 rabbits.
You could very quickly find it, you know, up in the 20s.
Yeah.
And they are escapologists as well. So the slightest item they will gnaw through and they'll be out and be pinching.
I think it's one of those.
Stuff from
Yeah.
other environments.
Yeah.
So I mean, and chickens also. If you've got an enclosure there that's just of chicken wire, foxes going in there are going to chew through that chicken wire in no time at all.
Yeah.
And believe me, to go into a chicken pen and see the foxes have been in overnight, it is not a pretty sight. So
Yeah.
my question really
Yes.
is, how strict have we put into the lease?
I mean, we provided specification based on the guidance from the RSPCA about how about minimum sizes and the way that should be done. It's a difficult one because ultimately, you know, the council have the responsibility, an overarching responsibility for deciding the things that go on there. That said, it's the tenant's responsibility under that agreement and under their tenancy agreement and under the law to make sure they as individuals abide by those things. And I think what the agreement does is just enables the council to exercise its responsibilities in a sufficient way that if we have concerns about that, ultimately, you know, a tenancy can be terminated.
Again, I can't comment because I haven't read the lease, but can we ensure that before any tenant puts in chickens or rabbits indeed, that we have checked the plot to make certain it's suitable before they actually put the birds in?
Yeah, and that would be part of that process. As Darren said, there are a number of things in that.
When you read the agreement, there's quite a detailed cover, there's almost a tick sheet actually, and the requirements that you have to do to meet in order to move to the next step. So I felt a little bit more reassured when I read that personally from that aspect.
As I said,
Yeah. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I think, you know, it's a point.
One thing to add, I know we're not quite on that item, it's in the
Sorry, yeah,
report, but also the terms of that agreement can be updated, changed as we go forward. So,
Right,
you know,
okay.
we encounter issues the same as we have done historically with the tenancy agreement as well.
Okay, so
Councillor Kennedy.
Kennedy, Mike, yes.
Sorry, Chairman, I think for the benefit of clarity in the recommendations, we ought to say that members approve the additional provision of skips at a cost of £1,300 per annum. So there's a clear recommendation to Stratford Resources that we've noted this, not just noted the report, we've actually agreed to spend another £1,300 per annum on the provision of additional skips.
Yeah, I'm fine to include that as a separate recommendation. Yeah, I'll do that.
And it's clear.
No, that's fine.
That's absolutely
Yeah,
fine.
thank you. Okay, so we've got a couple of things to cover, I guess, in the proposals. So the first one, can we take these all together?
Yes.
If you're happy with that. So the first proposal was obviously to refund the waste deposit to new tenants that was not implemented, but they were taken. Obviously, I'll take the provision of the skip separately. And then there's obviously the bit about the deposits for the hens and the rabbits. Now, what is, I mean, does everyone feel comfortable about charging £250, or are we happy not to go with that and then see what happens in the next year? Yes, Jim.
It's possible that this report is quite correct, but I'm seeing a wider picture. David has already expressed concerns about upcoming budget, and I agree with him. During last 1 year or more than 1 year, people's buying power has decreased. Woodley Town Council is not in any financial crisis, and there are many residents there who are doing this their hobby, this their enjoyment. So we should give them hope, positive message, and we should encourage them. I already said that it's possible that from a local perspective your report is 100% correct, but in a wider picture I will not go for it.
Obviously, we're not talking about having a deposit for all allotment holders, so they don't pay a deposit, and we'll refund the ones that we've taken. So I think that is we'll draw a line over that. But I do understand your point of view, and I do think that if we've only got 2 or 3 people that are proposing to do this, I do think that actually for the first year at least we can forgo a deposit, but we should be prepared to put a deposit in place if it becomes an issue and if we see many more people wanting to do it. Because if you're serious about keeping hens and rabbits on the allotment site, it's going to be very expensive. You should be prepared. The deposit will be the least of the costs that you'll have to pay, quite frankly. That will be the smallest cost in your list of costs if you're going to do that. So, but I think as a starter, I think I'll be happy for that. So,
Darren, can I ask,
Yes.
do we know how many people currently keep hens and rabbits?
none,
No.
none, zero. Yeah.
Well,
So
we're aware of, I think, 2 or 3 that wish to.
That might?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, the only thing that I would say is that with rabbits and with chickens, I agree that it seems pointless charging just the odd 1 or 2 people a deposit. But I'm also aware that if anything goes wrong, the cost to the council to clear it
Could be
is
very
gonna
high, yeah.
far in excess of what we're proposing there as a deposit. So if we're not going to have a deposit, I think we need to make certain that anyone asking for permission actually signs a document to say they will be responsible for
And this
those
is-
costs.
The tenancy agreement does that already.
It does.
yeah, it does already. They are.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's,
Right,
Yeah.
okay, then in that case,
You're okay with that?
I'm okay.
Okay, so I'll take these as separate recommendations then, okay? So the first recommendation is to refund the waste deposits that were taken for new tenants and to issue those back to those that we've taken money from. Can I have an agreement for that, please? Can we have a show of hands? All those against? All those abstaining? Okay, so I'll take the next proposal or recommendation, which is to increase the provision of skips to 3 times, for skips to 3-time periods per year, and to incur a cost of £1,300 per annum. Can I show hands of approval for that, please? And those against? And those abstaining? That's been approved. And then finally, as regards to a deposit, to not take a deposit for the keeping of hens or rabbits for this year, to have it under review for following years, depending on the popularity and the issues that we encounter. Could I have a show of hands for approval for that, please? Thank you. And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you. Those 3 recommendations have been passed. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, let's move then on to number 10, which is allotments rent review on page 58.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of allotments tonight. So this is the report on page 51. A couple of points to note. I wonder, historically, this report had never actually come to the Leisure Services Committee at all. It goes straight to the Strategy and Resources Committee. And it was considered that this committee should consider the charges going forward and make a recommendation in the same way that it does with other charges under its remit. Another point is just to note that charges were previously considered with the cost for the provision of water separated out, and through a conversation with our internal auditor, it was just a suggestion that it would be better for that water charge to be included within the rent charge. We separated it out about 10 years ago. The water charge itself didn't go up. It's because we were trying to address an issue with water charging and leaks and things at the site. But actually, the figures that you're seeing here are an inclusive rent, inclusive of water. The proposal is for the plot rent to increase in line with the RPI figure for September, as has been the case historically, and that reflects the general increase in cost to support the service whilst keeping plots affordable. That equates to a price per pole per annum from £6.80 to £7.11. Just to note that this would take effect from January 2027, because we provide a year's notice of any changes to the tenancy agreement, including the rent in accordance with the allotment act. There is a table for comparison charges there as well for other councils, just for information, which I think shows that it's still good value for money for Woodley residents and non-residents actually, and that I know that's been a key consideration for the council and for the committee historically. So
We We do have our pension reductions as well.
Yeah, so that's set out there. That was established some years ago. That's standard reduction. So the non-resident rate's 50% above that standard rate, and pensions get 25% discount across the board.
Cheap, isn't it?
Any questions, anyone?
Just one. Can I ask why we're doing it from 27 to 28?
Yep, it's because under the Allotments Act you have to give 12 months notice of any change, and because the rent is included within the tenancy agreement, you need to give that 12 months notice. So we do it now to be implemented in time for January, which is when the billing goes out. So it's January 2027.
Any other questions? Then I would make a recommendation. I would recommend that we make a recommendation to the Strategy Resources Committee regarding these rates to take effective from January 27. Can I have a show of hands to approve that, please? Any deny? Any abstentions? That's approved. Thank you very much. Then we come on to item 11, the allotments report. My gosh, it really is. Kevin.
Yes, thank you. So this report on pages 54 and 55 has been put together by our Democratic Support and Allotments Officer to provide some general information on the operation of the site, and also to ask members to approve some changes to the tenancy agreement for all tenants, and also consider the revised hen keeping agreement, which we just discussed. Just to note that those agreements do change over time. We add some things in, clarify some other elements from time to time, and obviously we can do that also going forwards. So we try not to do it every year, but actually we do that in conjunction with the Tenants Committee, often to make it easier for them in the information they're providing to tenants and the way that we can enforce the inspection programme and things like that. So it's generally for clarity, so that we can be a bit more robust with things. The hen and rabbit keeping agreement has been drafted using examples from councils elsewhere and key information and legal requirements. And the purpose of that agreement, again, is just to ensure that tenants wishing to keep livestock are fully aware of their responsibilities, and that the council can show its due diligence in administering that from an animal welfare perspective. And yeah, that's it. Obviously, the section in there that relates to the deposits will be amended in line with the previous recommendation. So, if there's any questions there.
Thank you very much then. So, I think the first thing to do is to know the contents of the report, obviously. Second thing is to consider approval of the 2027 tenancy agreement as attached in the minutes. Can I have a show of hands to approve that new tenancy agreement, please? All those in position, all those abstaining. Thank you very much, that's passed. And then that members consider approval of the new animal keeping agreement. Can I have a show of hands for that, please? Approval. Those against? Abstaining. Thank you very much. I will say one thing actually, I did notice that in the detail of the detail, there are a number of new policies that Kira has drafted. It was drafting with the help of the Tenants Association, which I was pleased to see actually.
Yes.
Because that gives more information, I suppose, really, in terms of guidance.
It does, and there's always been some vagaries around things like in the tenancy agreement we would ask tenants to contact the council, for example, if they wanted to put up a shed or something like that, and actually did not provide them with the information and the policy behind it.
Yeah, so there's about, I think there's about 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different policies that have been developed to give allotment holders or animal keepers specific guidance. So I think that's a really good format actually. Pleased to see that. I'd be interested to know about in terms of the bonfires, I know this has come up a number of times, because we don't really like bonfires, but we can't stop people from having them under the law. do they have to give permission to have a bonfire? Do we
No,
make notes of it? Do we record them?
no, there are terms set out, so it's seasonal and there are times of day that need to be adhered to, and that's stated in the tenancy agreement. That was put in some years ago. We do monitor it, and people do let us know if something's gone outside of that.
Okay. Thank you very much. In that case, I shall then move on to the item 12, which is the Weedle Park play area, page 68. Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. So the full council meeting of 30th of September instructed officers to progress the plan to replace the play equipment at the site, including excuse me, costing, project planning and consultation, with final approval of any works taking place only once the new lease for the site is in place. So officers have obtained some initial approximate costings in order to establish a budget for the project. The designs shown in Appendix B are indicative only, so this is just to show you an idea of scale, the scale of project that we get for that money. That would then go through a full tendering and consultation process once budget has been allocated for the project. There's two costed options. Option one, which is essentially a replacement of the existing slide unit, but with the addition of an accessible pathway. At the moment there are 3 entrances into that open space, all of which are across grass and mud and not particularly helpful for getting to a play area in the first place. Option 2 represents a more enhanced space with significantly greater play value, and again includes the cost of an accessible pathway and also the hard standing for the sports wall, which again at the moment has grass in front of it. It's considered that scale of project is in keeping with the size, accessibility and likely use of that area. It's not a massive area, but what's there at the moment is very limited. So the recommendation is that members consider a recommendation to Strategy and Resources on the allocation of funding, so that level of funding to enable us to get to that next position to go out to a tendering and then some consultation on submission.
Any questions?
Yes. First of all, I'm appalled that the cost of producing a lease is £4,200. I cannot believe that Reading Borough Council have the gall to charge another local authority that sort of sum of money. Would the officers please do use their best endeavours to bring that cost down, even if it means, you know.
I'm waiting for a response on that. I have gone back.
It's just appalling. That's number one. Number two, is there any possibility of getting any funding from other sources, grants, community infrastructure levy,
Yes.
etc.?
In terms of funding, there will be some options, depending obviously on the recommendation that might come from this committee, that would go to Strategy and Resources as to where that funding might come from. I think in terms of the scale of the project, it wouldn't change that. In terms of budget, you probably wouldn't want £100,000 or more project in there because it wouldn't take in because of the size of space. But in terms of where that money might come from, there'll be options to Strategy and Resources. One of the things that we'll be doing, just for information, is providing more information on projected SIL income, which has been signed off, we just haven't got yet. So for budgeting purposes, we can look forward in a better way rather than waiting until it lands and then we've got this money. So that will be part of the finance report that goes to Strategy and Resources as well.
And last point before I'm sure Yvonne would like to mention as ward councillor, as I am. I mean, I personally would like to see the bigger of the two projects. But I'm conscious of, costs. It's going to come from capital, isn't it, rather than...
Yes.
So it's a capital cost.
Yeah.
There have been little additional revenue implications. So I would go for the larger project.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the two images, I mean, there's no comparison, is there? I mean, the first is a little slide, and I think it's just going to look mean.
Yeah, I'm just trying to kind of illustrate the cost against replicating what's there already
Yeah.
in terms of play
Yeah.
value. As
The play value
something
in the
more
second
advanced.
one looks great.
I think putting the pathway in is a must.
Yes.
Yes, that would make a big difference.
Bizarrely, I think the pathway will be a lot of the cost, or a third of the cost, or something like that.
It's
Or is it?
it's factored in. It's not as much.
It's
as
not as
that.
much as
No,
I think,
it's-
okay, because normally pathways are expensive.
But essentially, I mean, anyone who's
Absolutely
got
important.
grandchildren will know that they're covering mum it's not going to finish, as indeed are grandparents.
Yes.
And that was something that came up from local residents when I did my
Yeah.
survey about 18 months ago. About having a pathway would be really nice. But elderly people just have a stroll around.
Yeah, I agree, to use it,
From,
yeah.
from an accessibility and
Yeah.
inclusivity point of view, that will, as it was with the large play area we did here, that will be a key criteria in the brief. Those things tend to be built in by design these days rather than added on, but absolutely pathways, seating. Yeah.
Any other questions? Personally, I would be very happy to support option B, option 2, to spend the extra money, because I think hasn't had any money spent on it since 2003 and 2006, and with the new heads of terms or the new leases coming through, conditionally upon paying a better price from Reading for the legal services, which I also think was a bit cheeky. I think we should go with option 2. I think, with silver monies, we got that back money as well that we got back from Leisure Services, which is also within our reserve. I think there's lots of options that we have to fund that money, that option 2, rather than just, taking it from somewhere which we haven't got money or from some other options. So I think we recommend.
Yeah, it's certainly the criteria.
Yeah, it's a seat. Particularly, yeah. Okay, so members to note the report. Are there any other questions before I go on to the final bit? Okay. So members to note the contents of the report, and then members to make a recommendation to Strategic Resources regarding option 2 funding to be allocated for the replacement of the equipment at Eagle Park. Can I have a show of hands for approving that, please? All those against? And all those abstaining, that has been approved. Thank you very much. Fantastic. I have to say that is good news. Right, item 13, to note an update from the Friends of Woodford Park on page 85. Kevin, anything you'd like to have on that?
No, just to note that the work is ongoing and it's good to see them still at it. We're still meeting with them regularly.
Good.
Regularly, the utilities manager and representative from Rotary.
It's working well.
Yeah.
It's working well. Michael?
Chair, I think again we should recall our thanks to the
Yes.
Friends of Woodford Park and to the Town Council on receiving yet another Green Flag Award.
Green Flag Award?
Did I read that rightly in my magazine that came through my
I
letter?
think we're must be getting up to year 9. Still the only one in Wokingham Borough.
Indeed.
Yeah. We are. And
That's a bit of a...
We should
next year's a full judging year, so you get like a full judging year and then a kind of mystery shop year.
celebrate our success. Well done.
Better than do a green flag for youth services subcommittee, isn't it? But maybe they will. That's something to bear in mind, isn't it? Can you imagine that? Anyway, let's move on to item 14 then, which is future agenda items. Does anybody have anything they'd like for us to consider? Okay, and then finally...
Sorry, I think we might, it would be a good idea to do something about the youth to promote what we're actually doing.
should we put that into publicity, or do you want to...
The publicity.
yeah.
Because I was talking today at the over 50s, telling them what we were
going on.
doing, and they were really thrilled to think that we were putting money in to get the youth going. So I think it might be a good idea to advertise it a bit more.
Why don't we add that to item 15? I think that's a great idea, because I think, we are one of the few town councils within Woking Borough that are doing anything for youth. And I think you should really publicise that fact.
Yeah.
And we've always been like that. Woodley's always been the standard bearer. I mean, working on when the government stopped all the youth
All
workers,
youth, they stopped
Woking
doing
were the first to throw theirs under the
the bus.
bus. Woodley's always tried very hard to actually do a youth service as part of it. And we were the only ones that actually put money into our own little area. And I think it should be.
I think it should be talked about. Other town councils should follow suit.
Well, indeed, Chairman. I mean, I'm still young enough to remember when I was in Kevin's place. We used to have a member of the press here, and they used to record it. We used to take notes and produce articles. Is this something that we can get Anushka to do? Is to actually send out press releases on the good news that we
Yeah.
celebrate what we've done today
Yeah.
tonight?
She's doing that. She's got a different plan for that.
Yeah.
Going forward, she does engage with the papers. You're right. You do have to feed them that information.
To give them information, yeah.
And we're also reporting back all the press releases that go out to all members as well, so
Yes.
that you've got that information.
Well, there's even things like, once this has all gone through strategy and resourcing and the monies have been approved, I hate to say, we're going to do this and it doesn't happen. So, but if strategy and resources have approved our budget for a lot of these things, again, you should advertise the fact that we are going to do X or B or Y or Z, and put extra money into certain things, because people, they don't know the good news always, do they?
Yeah.
And they always focusing on the bad stuff. So there's some really good things in here. We ought to, push it a little bit. Yeah, great idea. Okay, right. Well, that's the end of my agenda, or our agenda for this evening. I will close the meeting at 9:22. Thank you everybody for attending. Much appreciated. And have a good rest of the evening.